Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 7th meeting of the Riders Advisory Council. I'm Chair Cole Stout. I'm going to call this meeting to order and wish you all a happy new year, another year of loving Metro, and we're happy to be here. And I'll start by asking John to call the roll, please.
Sure. Chair Stout.
Here.
Vice Chair Siddiqui. Don't see him. Vice Chair Wei. Here. Solomon Chen.
Here.
Online. Matthew Clark said he couldn't make it. Eli Crivero Frankel.
Here.
Lucas Zavosky.
Here.
Alex Mendelson.
Here.
Brian Meyer is out. Pat Sheehan, I don't see online. Thomas Shepard.
Here.
Irene Stevens.
Here.
Hendy Tefesi.
Here.
Brandon Wu.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Moving on to item number 2, the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments to this month's agenda? Seeing none, we will consider it approved. Item 3, approval of the minutes. I don't believe we have any to approve. So we are
will be my
rolling right
news
along
resolution.
to item number 4, public comment. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who would like to share any thoughts, comments, or feedback with the RAC?
We have one person online. Bill, do you have anything to say? Okay, no.
All right. We'll move right into our first presentation item, item number 5, Metro Railway Finding and Customer Information. We've got Sam back with us to talk about what we're doing, what Metro's working on, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to join you guys for the first time. My name is Sam Sarabin. I'm the product manager of Wayfinding and Service Information. I'm joined by Brian Anderson, my boss, and Sarah Meyer, who is the VP of Customer Experience. We're here tonight to talk with you all about what we're doing, what we've been working on, and sort of help you understand how we work, but also to get your perspectives on things. It's an important part of our process. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And what we're talking about is the future of wayfinding. As you know, the system opened in 1976. It was one line, 5 stations. And the region collaborated with Harry Weiss and Massimo Vignelli to deliver what would become an icon of mass transit architecture. It is a gem that has grown over the years. And over those years, we've added features to it. We've added static service information, the stripes on the pylon. Just a small note, a lot of people think that the original design included stripes. It did not. The original design really was a stripped-down icon with just the Metro logo illuminated at the top. Years later, stripes were added. After that, names were added to it as well. So that's kind of an interesting history that we uncovered as we were doing our due diligence. We've also added a lot of real-time digital information screens throughout the system. They've been added as we've developed the technology and the capabilities to serve user needs. The system has also changed. It's grown a lot. We now have 98 stations today serving a very diverse community. That means we have a lot more signs. In terms of customer-facing signs, we have over 8,800 of them. If you start to look at other signs that we have for personnel that sort of maintain the system, for regulatory requirements, et cetera, we're well over 120,000 signs. It's a huge undertaking and task. And we have more than 1,500 digital signs delivering information to our customers. Our customers have also changed. They are multimodal more often. They are multilingual, and they are more often occasional travelers. That introduces challenges that we have to deliver on. They're also using mobile navigation tools. That's an interesting opportunity for us to engage with, and they value speed, clarity, and reliability in the services that they receive. We have recognized challenges that have developed over the decades. With system expansion across decades, we have spanned different styles and architectural types and times, and our system has evolved architecturally in ways that we have responded to. We have had pilots over the years. Here you're seeing Gallery Place and the introduction of a serifed font. That was unusual and something Massimo Vignelli probably would not have been thrilled to learn about. And there have been ridership increases, and that changes the flow of traffic on pathways and on platforms. And all of these things introduce new and interesting challenges for our teams. So over the last 3 years, we've engaged in a more intensive pilot program. All of you are probably familiar with the work that's occurred at L'Enfant, at Roslyn, at Metro Center, at Gallery Place, and at Capitol South. We've tried out different things, and some have worked and some haven't worked so well. But what we've learned customers like are labeled exits, points of interest, station ahead maps, and above all, clarity and consistency. And so we have assembled a team very recently of experienced designers that are focused on this next phase. It is an important phase and moment in time, and they have multidimensional expertise. We have someone with furniture design experience who's also a digital designer. We have people that are adept in both static and digital spaces. This is very important in the work that we do. And how we work is collaboratively, which is why we're in large part here tonight. We engage with both our internal partners, colleagues throughout the organization, but also external partners. And you are part of our external partners in this. We're using modern tools and techniques. You're seeing a screenshot of a 3D rendering that the team built in collaboration with someone in another department that we discovered who had skills in both 3D modeling and also game platforms. And so this is being developed in a game platform. And it is being used by the team to test out their ideas in real time and quickly iterate to try out other things. People don't usually get things right on the first try. And so the ability for us to see our work in a 3D space in a progressive manner is really important to the work that we do, so that when we eventually get to deploy this in a real station, we'll have a much higher confidence that we've gotten it right. And perhaps above all, we focus on accessibility for all. We've learned a lot about accessibility and what it means to have different needs and what accessibility challenges can be. And what was once thought to be fewer dimensions is now known to be more dimensions, and so we're trying to address as many of them as we possibly can. We are always keeping in mind the design legacy that we inherited in 1960. In 1960, Harry Weiss and Massimo Vignelli, as I said, collaborated with this region to deliver something exceptional. And in 2026, we're looking to reveal and restore their iconic design. We are doing that while moving into the future. So we are using modern patterns, things that people have gotten used to, and combining them with classic design principles. And so what you're seeing here is a photorealistic mock-up of a station ahead map that has some differences from what people have been used to and what was originally envisioned for these. And it follows some of the modern patterns that people are used to on their mobile devices, how they navigate now. It's best practice that we're trying to incorporate, and we're taking advantage of patterns that people understand from other places. And the reason I say this is an important moment or phase is because we're going to be formalizing these guidelines with a new L'Enfant installation in the near future. We're going to be reducing the visual noise. We're going to make information easier to read. And we're going to be incorporating into a consistent information design and delivery system. And that's why we're reaching out to you all, because this will be the final step in the system-wide rollout. That's going to take place over 5 years, 98 stations. We're going to be building a resilient, highly usable, and fiscally responsible system that is consistent throughout the system. We're going to be getting rid of a lot of the inconsistencies that have developed over time. So, our questions to you are, what would you like to see? What have you seen or experienced in other systems that we might want to be thinking about as we do our work? What challenges have you experienced? We're here to solve problems. So if we hear about challenges early, we can solve them. And what do you consider as priorities? And then finally, just a very open question of, do you have any questions for us?
Thank you, Sam, and apologies, I thought you had been here before, but welcome for your first time to the RAC. I do have one question for you before answering some of your questions. You mentioned earlier in the deck what you found customers liked about some of these pilots. What did you take away that customers didn't like, or things that got left, behind through design iterations?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So one of the challenges that we encountered was with the station ahead maps. They can be very complex and have a lot of information that we need to deliver. And so there's a trade-off that one has to make in terms of size of type versus amount of information. And so one of the directions we went included removing some of the station names from our station ahead maps. And what we heard was that people did not like that. And so in our latest generation, we are including all station names at all times. It's a question of equity, really. Who judges which station is not worthy of being on the station ahead map? And so that was one of those situations.
Awesome, thank you. I'll open it up, the RAC, if you want to think about those questions and have some feedback on what you like and don't like. Yeah, go ahead, William.
What was the impetus for,
Yeah, use your mic for the people online.
what was the impetus that kicked off the whole effort? Was there a singular problem or just time to refresh? Could you let us know about that?
I'll probably kick that one over to Brian, because I joined just under a year and a half ago, and this effort was already underway.
Thank you, Sam. It's a great question. So I can speak as a person who has worked here for about 15 years. But Sam has mentioned, as many of us know, that the system has changed greatly during that time. So there's always a trade-off of time and speed in order to deliver something. So as we work on expanding lines or changing service patterns to address needs, communities, capacities, we often just took what we know and applied it around the system. And then we have a lot of stakeholders, including jurisdictions, that as their communities grew, they requested name changes. And name changes, when you have a lot of information everywhere, become a very comprehensive and costly endeavor. So what that ultimately leads to is a lot of patchwork. And then probably within the last 2 to 3 years, we've had a very customer-focused administration come. Both Randy and Sarah walked in here on day one with the customer in mind, knowing that it was time to, dare I say, reboot and start fresh, but also for a level of consistency to meet everyone where they're at today. And so that's kind of how this started. And so, yeah, how the pilot started is just the essence of trying and failing and trying again. And I don't like to use the word failure. I think that we learned a lot. Sam mentioned about the station ahead maps. We also restored station ahead maps. There was a time period where the direction was take them all down because we had research that said that the system map is preferred. Then there's been the investment in digital. So it's an opportunity to take a wholesale look and, hopefully reboot, re-level, and then, we have a new base to start from.
Thank you. I think to kind of answer some of those questions from my perspective, what I like about the station ahead maps is the orientation of the bottom up with the I think you were mentioning what tools people typically are using to navigate. You think Apple and Google Maps, or having your position on the bottom and you're going up the screen. I think that's intuitive. I like it. I think a lot of people anyone who navigates with their phone will recognize that. One thing I've kind of noticed is, I know we've talked previously with folks about the actual the iconography of the lines. Is it going to be a single letter or a double letter? I've noticed like differences even like through the presentation, like what I think just the consistency there. I like the one letter. I think the RAC, the last time we discussed, liked the one letter. It's better for visually, especially the less letters you have inside the color circle there. And then on the digital screens, I really like what you kind of see here in this photo is the next train coming through. I feel like I don't ever see it on the platform screens, and maybe I just don't notice it. I know I see it when I come into the station, but I don't always see it on the platform. I see the system map cycle through, but I guess I also am not always looking at the screens. And you don't feel like you need to respond to that? No, you don't need to. Only if there's things you think you need to respond to, that's fine, but I know you're trying to solicit feedback from us.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, this is a great conversation. So if I heard a couple things, just from the digital sign perspective, we have different families of digital screens in our stations. We have a series of digital installs that are driven by advertising first. So while they may cycle through an advertisement, you'll also see customer communications or marketing messages. Anything from Metro Rewind to service changes on the weekend. So you won't see the digital station ahead list on those screens. So Archives is a perfect example of a station that has a digital advertising screen install, but not a passenger information screen install. So a passenger information screen install is where we have invested in digitally modernizing our infrastructure. And so that's L'Enfant, like pictured here, or any station that was touched over the last, I believe, 6 to 7 years under the capital project that was called Platform Improvement. So phase 1 was Braddock Road and South. Phase 2 was East Falls Church out to Vienna. So there were multiple phases. So those stations have passenger information digital screens, purely passenger, and those feature these dynamic station ahead maps. And we were able to blend the real-time arrival information based on customer feedback, right? It's basically a prediction engine that says the train's 2 minutes away and then lists all the stops. So if that helps as well.
That's one thing, 'cause it mirrors a lot of like what I like in like New York's system is I can be standing on the platform and look at the screen on the wall behind me and know that train, as the train comes in, it's like, okay, this is the train here, here's the next stops. Especially, their system has certainly a lot more lines in certain stations than we might have, but I think that's nice to have as a customer. When you get to the platform, you're like, especially people who are not riding the system a lot or maybe visiting, I think the intuition is you get down to the platform and I think we've all probably seen it with people who are like confused. So it's nice to have those there if the technology is in place to do it.
May I just address one other thing that I heard? Single letter versus double letter discs. Our strategic decision is to go with a single letter disc. So heard you loud and clear that you notice inconsistencies even in these pictures, but this is why Sam is here. So that decision was made probably late last year or I'm sorry, late 2024 or the beginning of 2025. But instead of a deep dive, let's change everything right now, it's the replacement, or you'll start seeing the single letter as things are replaced. So when we did the orange-silver split, where the silver line went to New Carrollton as well as Largo, and we reprinted all of the system maps, That's why the most, if not all, system maps now should have a single letter. But if you walk through stations and you see discs with 2 letters, that's because we haven't gotten to all of the signs yet. And digitally, yes, it's easier, but when you are working with a lot of siloed, disparate systems with legacy code bases that potentially rely on vendors to change, that takes a little more time.
Thank you. Eli and then Thomas.
Thank you. One thing that I wanted to make a comment on was for the system ahead maps and also just generally kind of looking at the lines. I think it's always really helpful to list the jurisdictions or like where the boundary is. Because when I'm kind of traveling, sometimes I'm going Maryland bound or I'm going Virginia direction. And I think also for people who are less familiar or visiting the region, that might be helpful to know. This is how far I can go and stay like in DC if they're a tourist or something like that. So I wasn't sure if I saw that on the example of the futuristic one there. Another thing I just thought of was also with the digital signages. I know on the newer ones, when they have like the elevator outages and other notices, it's kind of like at the bottom, so you can still see when the next one is. My home station at Rhode Island, we have the legacy system, I guess you were talking about. And if there's an elevator outage, I gotta wait, I don't know, a minute or 2 for the whole thing to kind of cycle through. And then I'm just like, well, who knows when the next train is? So I don't know if that's, I know you said legacy systems, but if there's a way that in the future those could be kind of, split screened a little better or something, so you at least can see when the next one is, that would be a great improvement.
Your concern is definitely noted. The legacy, your home station has what we call legacy PIDs, or legacy passenger information displays. Probably of all of the legacy siloed systems that have been, that I referred to, that is one of the hardest. The modernization of the screen itself gave us, because it was more real estate, gave us the ability to put the service announcements underneath the next 3, or early rollouts had the next 5 trains. But it's duly noted, and just so you know, we face this problem on the bus side as well, where we're trying to figure out the balance of messaging and real-time arrival information. So, but thank you for sharing that. It aids in our cause.
Thomas.
Oh, yeah, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I've noticed a lot of of the changes throughout the system, and I think they look really great. Just on the the on-platform screens that Cole had mentioned, one thing I think would be really helpful especially at transfer stations, is to show when the trains from different lines are coming, because while you're on, I got off at L'Enfant earlier to get here, and they have one of those screens, and it only shows the trains for the level you're on. So I think that would be helpful if you could just see the trains on the upper level, when they're coming. I also think you only have so much space on a screen, but I know some transit systems around the world have inside the trains and buses, they'll have screens that show when the next trains and buses are coming at that stop. I think it could be helpful, although the screens on the trains aren't super big, so it might be tricky. But at least I think maybe it could be a little, better organized. I think the listing of the routes and stuff, because it's kind of like a list, or just a list of numbers right now, and I think maybe you could put the destinations, or I think on some of them some routes are missing, but yeah.
Thank you. We understand this challenge as well. The best I can add right now is that as new vehicles come online, from the rail side, it's really the 8000s. That's really where we are strongly focused, because the future of technology and flexibility are built into that, rather than something like the 7000 series, which reached its 10-year-old milestone, but I think this year or last year. But also, if you think about it, just for perspective, while that car is only 10 years old to us who ride it, it's about 15 to 20 years old from an engineering and design perspective. And I can share that same anecdote about the 3 and the 6000s, because while, you know, the year that it was introduced may have been the 90s, it's still based off of a system architecture from the 60s or 70s, where there's only like 128 megabytes of RAM. And that's why we don't have a destination for all 98 stations, right? So just giving that perspective. So top line is 8000s should take into account some of what you're mentioning. We're trying very hard to figure out the 7000s. I think your next opportunity to see change will be on the 6000s, but those are a couple years off, because we have to figure out how to re-architect technology in one of the oldest fleets that we have.
I think, Irene, you want?
Thank you for the presentation. And before the meeting, I had a few questions for Sam about the wayfinding and signage on the train on the Metro platform. And so the suspense is over. I said I would wait so I could present this formally for the RAC about the signage. So I have pictures of, there's the current signs that are larger. And so they're, I learned that the inner part here, we have a 3D model for everyone that's joined virtually, the vaults. And so the longer signs, they're, it's, I don't know, maybe 4 vaults long. And so I noticed at the U Street Metro station, there's a shorter signage. So there's one for the station name, but then there's also wayfinding for exits. So for consideration, and also like to get feedback from, you know, Metro, but also from the RAC, of the smaller signage than the larger signage, rush hour. So I saw the first signs at night, and then during rush hour, I noticed, I said, well, it might be hard to see the station if you're on a crowded train and somehow there's, I don't know. I mean, like, it could be crowded, cannot see signage, and just for orientation on exit or just, you know, wayfinding. So is it possible to keep the larger signs and update those, but also the smaller signs that assist with exits and wayfinding? Because you mentioned about the cost, and so something cost-friendly.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I'll repeat a little bit of what I told you before the meeting for everyone else's benefit. So part of what you're seeing at U Street Station is implementation of a new system of track signs. Prior to these track signs, we used to have service information on them. Service changes, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And when that service changes, we then need to go and change the service that appears on those signs. Those signs are in the most difficult spot and the most expensive spot for us to change system-wide. And so we have made the decision that we're going to be pulling all service off of those signs. At U Street and some of our other stations that we've implemented these new track signs, what you're seeing is a work partially in progress. And so that's somewhat unfortunate, because we're taking away information, but we're not then supplementing it with other information. And so the natural response is going to be, hey, you took away something useful to me. This is less useful. And in the interim, it's going to be less useful. We're going to try to keep that as short as possible. But what follows l'enfant will be all that information appearing on the platform. You're going to get more useful information on the platform in a place that we can change more quickly and more cost economically. And so when a service changes, not only will the changes be implemented system-wide more quickly, and so the system will be more accurate more quickly, but it will also be cheaper for us to do. And so when things change, we'll be able to change more quickly. In terms of the size of the signs, Throughout the system, there are signs of all different sizes presently. There's a lot of inconsistency. We have some very, very small signs, like on the red line, I think at Woodley, Cleveland Park. They're very small. Then we have some very large signs, 24 inches in height, and then we have another class of sign that's about 18 inches in height. And the decision we've made is to get consistency in all the stations except for the transfer stations. So all stations will be going to an 18-inch high sign. That'll enable us to have a more consistent design. It'll also enable us to, in the shop, our facilities partners, to hear about an issue with a sign and just go to the stock and print out a new one very quickly without having to go into the field, measure, go back to the shop, fabricate the sign, then install it. And so that's going to make us more efficient. In the transfer stations, we're going to stay with the 24 inch, the biggest of them, and that's out of a necessity. The amount of information we need to deliver at our transfer stations is greater than we need to deliver at other stations, and so we're going to need that extra height. But so what you're going to see eventually is all the signs will be the same size.
Thank you, Sam. I think Brandon, and then, yeah.
Sorry, can I just add one thing? That was a great question and discussion, and William, to your point earlier about how did this come about, for a lot of the points you heard just from that exchange is another key reason why we're talking about this now.
We'll go to Brandon and then Alex.
Sweet. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us. I wanted to touch on two other areas. The first is exits. I found at least that at L'Enfant Plaza, having the exit letters has been helpful for me. I've noticed like there are stations where I would have liked to have an exit letter to say, like, for instance, at DuPont Circle, I think like the southern exit is labeled, or the northern exit is labeled as DuPont. I can't even get it right now, and I've lived here for what, like 5 years. And so I think like being like, oh, come to exit A, that's where we'll meet. Like that's something I've noticed in international systems have been super helpful and something that I've liked about L'Enfant Plaza. I think for stations with transfers, sometimes I've noticed, especially with folks like tourists or people who are navigating transfer stations for the first time, the flow is not immediately obvious of what direction should I be going to transfer, which escalator is even like the right escalator. Like sometimes I walk into the traffic of escalators coming up at Gallery Place or L'Enfant, and so those are areas as well that I've experienced as challenges and would love to see as like priorities. For, I guess, a question maybe, or a broader comment I have too, is if there are plans with this 5-year roadmap to be sort of like taking samples of wayfinding updates and bringing them to the general public. Like, are there plans for some kind of like, I don't know, slide or presentation like has happened at HQ for Better Bus? Are there plans to do like little pamphlets at stations to like pass out to folks to sort of give feedback? Like, what does that sort of look like moving forward, if you know?
I can give you a partial answer. We intend to be testing with the public. So in addition to showing you our work as we go along and asking for input, we're going to be doing tests. We test a variety of different things. We're going to be testing iconography, amounts of information, organization of information. Then we're also going to be testing in the 3D environment. It's why I described the sort of game platform, the 3D model and the game platform. We're going to be reaching out to the public to test whether we've achieved the right phasing of information and delivery of the right information at the right times within that game model. That's what we're working on doing right now. We're trying to move at a very quick pace, but that is the goal. And then we intend to engage with the public at L'Enfant. The reason why we're doing L'Enfant is so that we can then talk to people about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing there. I really appreciate your comment and observation about the escalators, the pattern there. I ran into that problem at Gallery Place today. The moment I go off my usual pattern of travel is when I run into this problem. And so I hear you, and I appreciate that one as well, and we'll look into that. And nice to hear that the exit lettering is welcome. We intend to do that at all stations where there are multiple exits. The intent also is to always make A the ADA one. So hopefully that creates an intuitive pattern as well.
think Alex.
Thank you. Following up off the discussion on the trackside signs, I wanted to ask if you know what kind of information is going to be supplementing the PIDs in the future. Are we looking at just like more station ahead maps, or is there other signage on like island platforms we're looking at where you have to decide which side of the platform you have to go to?
Yeah, the team is very much in the process of looking at that, but station ahead maps are going to be a key tool for sure. And then the question of directional, Brian's heard this a lot from me, directional language is one we're looking at and thinking about a lot. Do we use icons to direct people to the right track for the airport, for example? Do we use sort of the mall icon to direct people toward the center of our system? How do we use that? How does that supplement other tools that we already have, the terminal station names? And so that's what you're going to see more of on the pylons, on the center platforms, and then also on your side platforms. So a lot more will be closer to to people as they're standing there waiting for the trains.
Eli.
Just kind of a follow-up question to those two questions there. You said for places like U Street Station, you're keeping the minimal information on those signs. Do you know what information is going to be maintained, just to have a better understanding?
Yeah, sorry about that. I gave Irene the whole lowdown before the meeting. So our track signs are going to be reserved for infrastructure information, stuff that doesn't change. Yes, every once in a while we'll have a big capital improvement at a station, such as like at Bethesda with the Purple Line, and all of a sudden a new elevator comes in. But that's pretty unusual. So think in terms of infrastructure, escalators, elevators, exits, ADA routes. That will be on your track signs in addition to the station name, and all service-related information will be on the platform.
Somewhat, but not really related. Thinking about how people navigate the system, and I see in some stations that not in others. Like in Gallery Place, especially, you've got on the floor of the platform, the 6-car train signs, like the actual, not just the car ends here, but the actual like move down the platform. I really think you need it at the airports, because I see this. I fly a lot, and every time I come home and I'm getting on the metro, I see people who have never taken the metro before, and they come up the escalator, which is right at the end of the platform, and the train blows right by them, and they're sprinting with their bags, which is not safe, down the platform to catch the train. I really think we should put those in on the floor, on the actual floor of the platform at the airports, probably at Dulles. I don't think it's on there at Dulles, but I think you probably run into the same challenge there. So I know it's not the signage we're talking about, but somewhat related.
Fairly non-controversial adjustment that can be made.
And I think I see Cal's hand online.
Oh, there. I thought I was taken down there. Hi. So I'm Cal. I'm a member of the Friends of Bus Transit and hopefully future RAC member. And I have a question and a comment, and I apologize about the question. I missed the first few minutes of the presentation. So the question is, are you planning to replace all of the legacy, I call them dot matrix signs that we've had, for a long time on the platforms and at the bus stops? And the comment I have is it'd be very helpful to have bus stop departure times just outside the fare gates before you go up the escalators.
Thanks, Cal. The dream is to replace all of the LED passenger information displays. The timeline and cost related to that is long and high. So we will continue to maintain that aspiration. And as capital projects come our way, we will use that as opportunities to upgrade the screens. I will say that we just started a research and development exercise to see what the capabilities are, that if we cannot fully replace the screen, because replacing the legacy PIDs is not just hanging a new screen. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into putting up that, what is a 55-inch screen at the newer stations. And so also in a cost containment exercise, we just want to be good stewards of money, and that if we cannot make the full investment in the foundational element, the pylon, the arm, and the screen, that we can figure out how to modernize the existing box. So one, we get out of legacy software, but then more importantly, we figure out how to display information in a better way. That has also come up in this discussion. So that might have been a long-winded answer to, that's the dream. A timeline I cannot give you, but we do continue to aspire to that. Relative to bus information, hear you there. And again, I think it goes back to where we invest in digital, where we have, similar to the photo that is in this last slide here, where we have digital passenger information screens, we do use one or multiple of them to display departing bus information from the street. So just in this example, what you're looking at here, there are 2 screens in that 4 array of information. The right one is bus departure information on the street above. But cleaning up fragmentation of those 2 small screens above the information bar, that left screen is also bus information. So we do have it in about a third of stations. It may not be right, maybe in the location that you identified, but it is there. And we actually just rolled out a more consistent modified design. So we hope you notice it. The routes are in capsules. We're trying to clean up the abbreviations. We have bus boarding locations in certain spots, and then it's real-time departure information.
So is that one that we see in the photo, is that inside or outside the fare gates?
That is outside the fare gates.
Okay, that's good. And you mentioned a 55-inch new screen size. What's the size of the legacy of the dot matrix, of the LED, whatever you want to call them, screens?
We'll have to get back to you on that, Cal.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I
All right.
don't know.
That's
the
all right,
dimension
no
off the top of
problem.
my head.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
Is there anyone? Yeah, Thomas.
Yeah, just one other thing relating to buses. So I noticed, since the Better Bus program implementation, they've added the new bus maps and in the stations. And I think they are nice because they show a very detailed picture of when you get out the station, where the bus bays and stops are. But I also did the older design a little bit better because it also showed where the buses were going, because right now I think you have a map right outside the station, which is good, but then you just have the entire bus system map. I think that can be a little confusing, especially because it doesn't really label stops, and when you're looking at the map it's kind of hard to see where some of the routes stop and end. And I think it's nice that there's detailed information on the other map showing where the stops are, about the destination. But I also think it's just nice to see a visualization of where the routes are going. And I think it could be done. I'm not sure what it would look like, but maybe just something. I mean, there's even an example in that photo right there of the old map, and it shows all the different bus routes and where they're leaving from. I just think that would be maybe a little more helpful, but yeah.
Agreed, and hopefully it's positive news to know that in the next few months after probably La Enfant, we're going to be turning our attention to maps in a very focused way. It's good to hear that you like the sort of the closer location map. What I expect is the direction we'll head is we'll keep that or something very similar to that, but then also include the information you're talking about that is specific to the routes that are served from that location. Whereas right now, the map that goes along with that is one that shows the whole region, and that can be very difficult to parse. And so hear you and expect changes in the coming year.
Alex.
I will say as a follow-up to that, I've seen the more closer zoomed-in maps for Better Bus that kind of came in recently. I've seen them a lot in the Roslyn-Ballston corridor where it specifically shows where the bus stops are and the direction of the bus it's going, which I think is very helpful, especially in more dense regions where the buses are usually leaving from different cross streets, like there's stuff going north, east, west, south. One's maybe 2 blocks over here, one's maybe like 2 blocks in the other direction, and I think that is very helpful. So definitely would like to see more of that. And then one other thing I might add is as we're kind of going ahead on the digital station ahead maps, maybe both in and out of trains and buses, I think some information that could be helpful is the time to arrive at those next stations. Like if you're at L'Enfant Plaza and you're going towards Pentagon on the yellow line, it could be like, it's like 4 minutes towards Pentagon, but then Pentagon City is like only additional 2 minutes past that, and that information could potentially help customers. So, just a thought, but thank you guys so much for coming in.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you for coming in and having a great conversation. It's nice to help in that design iteration phase when we can give some of that rider feedback. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. All right. And thank you to the RAC for a good discussion. It's always nice when everyone gets involved. Next up, we have the FY27 budget hearings. And I'm assuming, John, this might be you information sharing with us.
Indeed it is. Sorry, let me just pull up my right file here. So hum quietly to yourselves while I.
It's almost like I've been doing this for a few years that I was like, I think there's no one here in the room or online. While John's pulling that up, I'm looking ahead to the next item. A question I will have for all of the RAC members is to think about, to share out some groups that we can do some outreach to for our annual report feedback form. So start thinking of your networks and what touch points you have with the community, and I'll share some more information about that with Thomas when we get to that next item.
Try this one more time. There we go. All right. So we will be having 3 hearings on our FY27 budget, and as we discussed with folks last month with Peter and the woman from Rail Service Planning, whose name is out of my head right now. You know, the FY27 budget for Metro doesn't include any fare increases. It doesn't include, except for one change in Prince George's County, it doesn't include any reductions in service. So our public hearings are a little less robust this year. Our outreach certainly will be robust. I see Sarah sitting over there, so I want to make sure but Metro will be having 3 hearings on the budget. We'll be having 1 in person. That is going to be at the Arlington County Government Center, in the Bozeman Government Center at the Arlington County Boardroom. It is adjacent to the Courthouse Metro on the orange and silver lines. And also reachable by several bus routes, both ours and our partner Arts. And then we'll be having 2 virtual hearings, one to catch people on their lunch break on Wednesday, February 4th, and then 1 evening hearing on Thursday, February 5th. If anyone from the RAC wants to, set up a little Lucy Van Pelt table, as I'd call it, at the in-person hearing, or just, come and circulate and talk to people, whether with a name badge on or without, please feel free to let me know and we can make that happen. And it sounds like Sarah has something to add.
I just wanted to remind us all of the very useful and somewhat long survey, online survey that comes out every time we do this solicitation for comment, right? We know how difficult it is for some people to come in person and even join us on these virtual hearings. And so we do have a pretty robust survey that you could fill a couple questions out or take the entire survey. But it's so helpful to get as many people as possible to fill out this survey if they are unable to come in person or to the virtual hearings. So any help to distribute that survey, we'd appreciate it. We do put some paid dollars behind it on the transit app and other places that we know our riders are on. It is available in different languages, and just appreciate all of your advocacy. I know it's, you're all leading very busy lives, and the fact that you're invested in this system just means so much to all of us who are trying to make transit easier and faster for everybody so that they can get home faster and to work faster. Thank you.
Yes, as Sarah notes, like well over 95% of our input on the budget comes from the survey. And it's part of our sort of commitment to meeting people where they are rather than making them come to us, even virtually. So any assistance you can provide in distributing or making people aware of the survey would be fantastic.
And I would encourage folks, if you can, going to the hearings, in-person hearings is also interesting. It's a nice experience. It can be an interesting experience, especially if you haven't done many of them in the past. It's just good to I'd like to listen to what people are saying around me and listen to conversations. Some people like to solicit feedback and ask questions, and that's whatever you would like it to be. But if you can, it's always a good opportunity to hear directly from riders too.
And that said, I don't want to put anybody on the spot to confirm attendance tonight, but if you do think you're going to go to the hearing on the 3rd, let me know by the end of that Friday, like the end of the week before, Friday, whatever that would be, the 29th or 30th.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. And speaking of surveys, it rolls right into our next item on the annual report, community update. Brandon, our former annual report chair, and Thomas, our new chair, and myself and John had a nice call earlier this week to finalize our feedback form, not a formal survey, for the RAC's annual report. If you're new to the RAC, this is one of the charges that the board gives us in our bylaws and the creation of the RAC. It's one of the only things that we're really mandated to do by the board. And so we like to do a good job. And I think this was started by my predecessors to really put up a good report. And I think we had a great one last year and love to continue doing that. But that really revolves around having feedback from riders. I think we had 197, was it 197 responses, I think, yeah, somewhere in there, responses. And it'd be great to get over 200 this time. And so I think I'll toss it to Thomas here in a second to go through what the survey, looks like and the questions we ask. And we can think about as a RAC, is there things missing that we want to include, or do we want to change things and ask additional questions? And what are the trade-offs there? And then also really do just a quick exercise as a RAC to go around and see what groups folks will be reaching out to, so we're not duplicating efforts, to see where we might be missing space, where we need to go find groups. Because over the next 2 months, this is a data collection phase, and we really, really need everyone to be pushing this to the folks who they have touch points with. And so I'll kick it over to you, Thomas, if you want to kind of walk us through what the questions are and kind of lead that discussion.
Yeah, sure. So the questions for this year's survey are pretty much exactly the same from last year as they stand now. And the first one, well, I guess the first one that's listed on the survey is like your location, jurisdiction of residence. I think just a side note here, I think this year we should maybe try to get more diversity of locations, because I think last year was a lot of DC and Virginia, but few people from Maryland, so that maybe could be something we work on. And then, most frequented Metrobus or Metro Rail home station. And then after that, we have like, what are your top 3 concerns or areas where WMATA could improve, which I think, sort of gets to like, the crux of what we're trying to get at with this survey. And then what changes solution would you propose Metro implement to address the concerns listed above? And then what positive changes have you observed in the past year? We could potentially include what negative changes have you observed in the past year? Although maybe that's like the same as like, top 3 concerns. And then finally, how would you rate Metro on a scale of 1 to 10? And yeah, I think every year we've sort of kept track of a rating. And yeah, so these are the questions as they stand, and would love to hear you guys' thoughts on it, and if we should add anything or change some of the questions. I think they look pretty good right now, but I'm definitely open to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, Eli.
Yeah, one thing that just came to mind is, I know you mentioned like what organizations or groups are in our network, and how we can start that outreach. That might be something that would be interesting to ask here, like what networks or groups are you a part of? So then we can start kind of developing maybe a directory of groups that we can reach out to in the future.
Yes, we'll be doing that that's the next step. I think once we think about, and first we want to focus on what are the questions we're asking, and then I am going to go through a list of groups that I have access to, and I would love for other RAC members to do the same.
My thing would be to add a question here for the people taking the survey, because then maybe we will learn about new networks that we're not part of that we can outreach to.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I follow now. I like that. I kind of like that idea. Yes, William.
I like keeping the questions. Sometimes it's great to have a lot of questions, but it's also daunting.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. I like keeping the questions from last year. There's some uniformity. And also, maybe there's a lot of positive things about having a lot of questions, but it's also daunting because it's hard enough getting people to actually open them and take them. If you got 10 pages of stuff, they may not do the first page. So, yeah, I think you hit the key ones. And then I know, this is probably more than what we want here, but there's a science of, how to formulate these questions, and it might impact the answers. These are pretty straightforward, so there might not be much impact, but there's something to that as well. So bottom line, I think it's good.
Yeah, Irene?
Idea on when you'll have the survey ready? I'm just thinking ahead of when we'll have, is it like, I guess with tool, Qualtrics or whatever, so we'll have a link ready to share with, because I immediately thought of ANCs, there's other transit-friendly groups, but just so we can, because, they have meetings already scheduled, I guess, for next month.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much ready to go. I think it's basically my understanding, Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong, is we could have this ready to go tomorrow. I think it's been copied and we use Google Forms. Yeah, use Google Forms for it, but it's really ready to go. I think, I wonder, looking at the questions again, if we're asking about, I think, Thomas, you might have said this, if, we're asking about positive changes, should we ask about negative changes as well, or say what change, or maybe just say what changes have you noticed? So we're getting a more, what I like about taking a step back, what I like about the questions and how they're framed is it's just soliciting top of mind thoughts. It's not leading questions. It's not focusing on certain areas. It's pure, like, what is the rider thinking of when they think about Metro? And I think that's what we're trying to solicit, and that's when we, part of where I see this feedback form is different from what Metro's doing, is finding out some of these issues that might be bubbling in the system. That's a great way to elevate new concerns, but also just getting that top of mind is most people are thinking about X, Y, or Z. And that's kind of what I like about it. So I wonder if we want to change, just drop the word positive to say what changes. I would love to hear what y'all think about that.
Yeah, I think you could make it like, what changes have you observed and how has that affected your experience? Because I still would love to know, like, I think if you just say what changes have you observed, it's like, that's just saying what they did. We still want that opinion aspect there too.
I like that as well. We go to Solomon and then Alex in the room.
Yeah, I appreciate you all working on these questions. I think a lot of them are really good. I was wondering about the top three concerns. I think of some people who maybe even don't really think about the Metro all that much, or even just I wonder if they might see that and think, well, I know what my biggest concern is, but I don't really know what if I had to list two others. So I wonder if maybe that we could change that to have it simpler. I know we obviously want to get more information, but I wonder if maybe just listing, what are your top concerns, and then people who have multiple would be able to list them.
Could you, sorry to jump in, could you reword it to what are your top concerns with Metro service, yada, 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 then parens list up to 3? Is that?
Yeah, if I can jump in really quickly too, because last year we did have people who, when reading their responses, they still put 7 concerns, and I only read the first 3. I was like, I'm not looking at 4 through 7, because when they put 7, they also listed paragraphs. So I think, yeah, including up to 3 would be great. And people also still only put 1 or 2, despite the top 3 language, but I totally see where you're coming from, Solomon, so I think that makes sense.
Okay, I like that. And then, yeah, Alex.
These questions are looking awesome. I'm really excited to getting this form out. A couple things I might note are if we wanted to potentially split positive and negative into different questions, because I often find that negative feedback will often overshadow the positive feedback, because that's just what people's experiences are. And I still think getting a good highlight of positive things are helpful for the RAC as we keep advising WMATA staff. And then one other thing is I wonder if some of the language of the questions, like how would you rate Metro on a scale of 1 to 10, might lead people just to think about Metro Rail and not Metro Bus. So I wonder if we might want to add like Metro and Metro Bus just to be extra clear. But that's all I've got. These are looking great.
Okay, I like that. Lucas.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the only things is how do we differentiate like a concern from like a negative change? Just because like I think it could be similarly associated. Like if you've noticed something negative, that could be one of your top concerns. So how do we just keep them from repeating their same answer at the top down once we get to question number 5?
Yeah. Thank you. Cal.
So the Friends of Bus Transit did a survey that was heavily concentrated in Chevy Chase, but included all of Ward 3 and parts of Ward 4, and ran for exactly 1 month, the month of October. We got 48 responses. This was only on buses. But we asked, after we asked specific questions about specific bus lines and things, we asked, what do you like about the new bus network? What do you not like about the new bus network? And what improvements would you suggest to make bus service a better transit option? And then a place for comments. So I don't know if that sort of approach is useful. We also asked how frequently do you, but I imagine that WMATA, their feedback probably includes that. And we did a rating 1 to 5 as well. I think that was it. Oh, and we asked what you use the bus for, which I don't imagine you'd want to ask for going to work, going to school, stuff like that. But I think those open-ended questions, what do you like, what do you not like, what improvements would you suggest, and any other comments might be helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Cal. And Brandon.
Yeah, if I could jump back into the positive, negative conversation, I think, I wonder if there's a way that we could slightly tweak the language of what are your top 3, or what are your top concerns up to 3, and what positive changes to make it clear, like this is the place for you to give your negative feedback, and this is your place to give your positive feedback, in a way that, because if we were to try to create a what changes have you disagreed with? I don't know. I feel like that is also sort of blurring the lines with top 3 concerns with Metro service. So I almost wonder if there's a way that we could sort of delineate that top 3 concerns question into what are your top 3, what are your top concerns with Metro, which could include areas where it improves or changes that have been made recently, something like that, to set up sort of a contrast with positive improvements. I don't know. Maybe I'm making things a little foggier, but it's my thought process on that.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Is anyone else? I think what we'll do is huddle with John and Thomas and kind of get this, sort out what we've heard on the questions themselves. And hopefully we can figure that out this week, so that way, come Monday, by Monday, we'll have that form out to everyone, which brings us to the next part of the conversation about the annual report. Is I would really love for us to start making lists of groups that we're going to reach out to. I think as part of, it's when everyone applied to the RAC, we asked the question on the application of what groups are you connected to. And part of the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that we're getting into some of these groups for this purpose. I have a long, from being on DMV Moves, I have a long list of 70 individuals who belong to various groups. And I sent the survey out to those folks last year, and I'm going to do it again this year. But I don't want to go ahead and list all of those folks off. So I'd love for you all to start. If you know who you're going to send stuff to, just go ahead and we'll raise hands and start listing out folks. I would love for everyone to list at least 1 or 2 groups that they're going to reach out to, so we can start making a list and check it twice. Lucas.
Yeah, I'm pretty well connected with a lot of the ANCs in Ward 5, so my own, which I know Eli and I share, same ANC, and then 5E, and then a couple down in Ward 6 as well, so could probably talk to those folks. I think that's probably where I'd start, but we can keep going around.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lucas. Alex?
I'm definitely pretty connected to the high school community in Arlington, so I'll hope to reach out to that. And as well as there's a Sustainable Mobility Advocates community in Arlington as well that I can reach out to. That'll probably be where I get most of my responses. But
awesome. Thomas?
Yeah, I could definitely reach out to the Georgetown community, and I know Brandon would probably have some contacts there as well. But yeah, just with the various clubs, and also the administration, maybe hopefully get faculty responses as well as students. Also my high school, DCPS. Last year when I reached out to my high school, my principal was not super responsive, but hopefully that will change this year. And then I guess like some like neighborhood groups from like where my family lives, and like Tenley Town, Friendship Heights. Yeah, I think that's it for now, but I'll see if I can think of any others.
Thanks, Thomas. And I think we'll probably be able to provide you with some draft language too for emails, or like, you can kind of convert to spoken word if you're doing it in person. So that will also be a resource we'll provide to you. And we'll go here to Eli, then over to Brandon and William.
Cool, thanks. Professionally, I have a lot of connections through city council members across the region, so I know a lot of them have their own newsletters. Maybe some of them would be willing to put this there. I'm also connected to some immigrant rights groups, so there might be a language access issue. I'm happy to help kind of like translate it to Spanish, or if someone else would like to work on that too. I don't know how that would make things a little complicated or not, but that also is, of course, a transit-dependent population.
Awesome, thank you. And we'll come over here. Let's go around this way. That works.
Yeah. Yes, I can also send it out to, there's a network of 5 counties for older adults. So Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, and Alexandria, so I'll get it out to those groups. I was thinking of Susmo as well, but looks like Alex already got that covered.
Awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, for me, we have like a civic association in my neighborhood, so I'll probably like drop it on the WhatsApp group and hopefully get some responses. Last year, I think the office of the ANC, they like had a 2-month backlog on emails, but on like March 1st, they sent every ANC email. And so if I still have that, I'll find that and maybe send it to you, Thomas, because I think that could be a pretty easy like mail merge, like send templated emails to every ANC, for instance, and see who bites. I know especially that something that I wanted to work on last year but didn't get quite far enough on was especially reaching east of the river communities in Ward 7 and 8, and so would love to see that in addition to Maryland representation this year in our RAC responses. But yeah, other than that, I don't know, Thomas, also if you're planning on continuing the like spreadsheet system that we did last year where like everyone just sort of added in what organizations they contacted. Maybe I had people put the date they contacted too, if I remember right, just as a good like measure. And I think it's also a nice way to like, oh, I'm in a similar group that this other RAC member also sent their outreach to, and we can like bounce ideas off that way too.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We should definitely do the spreadsheet again.
Since I live in Ward 5 as well, I'd like to make sure that we don't have too much overlap, and I'd like to help with Wards 7 and 8, or if there's any other coverage of wards, ANCs or wards for outreach. In addition, I know someone who works on transportation equity and an engineer, and so I'm thinking that he may have new networks that I, don't have access to. In addition, there's the Transit Enthusiast of DC, and also a friend who is involved with her sorority in Maryland. And so I just thought of, I'm not in a sorority, but to get in touch with those or even fraternities for additional outreach to increase the responses from Maryland.
Awesome. I think those transit enthusiast groups will also help us spread it. Those are great folks who care about the system, are involved in the system, like comment on it daily, like asking them to also, because they're going to be further connected, to say, you take it, but please forward it on to your network and your friends and people who you talk to.
Yeah, and like a quick thought too is maybe in the confirmation message for when you submit the Google form, we put an ask that's like, thank you so much for completing this quick form. Like, please send this to 3 friends with this, and I'm assuming we're making a bit.ly again, like bit.ly/RAC 2026 or whatever shortened link we use, just as like a very quick and easy way of like, okay, I filled out the form, and that encourages me to then like send it on to people. So having it kind of built into the form, I think would be cool too.
Yeah, great feedback. Anyone on the teams have any thoughts or ideas or comments on who they might want to share with?
I can't raise my hand. This is Pat. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you, Pat.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I can hit the disability community through my committee. So we'll have folks from Virginia, DC and Maryland, visual impairments, wheelchairs, learning disabilities, hearing impaired. So covering those topics and get that feedback in like I've done the last couple of years.
Thank you, Pat.
Sure.
Solomon, I might have seen you come off mute for a second.
Yeah, sorry, I think I went through a disconnect. Yeah, no, I think I have some work connections through just the Hill in general. I think a lot of I don't know where geographically they're all based, but I think a lot of it will be, primary usage of commuting for work. So kind of in those morning and evening hours, so I can reach out to them.
Great, thank you. Eli again.
Yeah, so for the February 3rd open house, I know you mentioned that we could have like maybe a table or some sort of representation. Are we thinking about maybe just having like a QR code there and for the people we talk to there? Could be another way.
I think that's a great idea.
Nodding vigorously.
I will not be able to be there, but if anyone is, we'll chat after. We'll make it again.
Right, I mean, I would say, I think you need to frame it at, like, let people know who you are and how you're collecting that information and differentiate it from the budget survey that Sarah mentioned. But it doesn't, I think that's a great idea.
Awesome. Hendy.
And since I'm a George Mason student, I can also reach out to the George Mason University community and reach out to the different clubs there. It's a really huge college, so I think we'll get a lot of responses. And I can also reach out specifically to the transportation department there and ask them to spread the survey.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. Lucas.
And I've been thinking this whole time, because I know we still have very little Maryland representation in here, but I met somebody who's one of my neighbors, and they work for Montgomery County DOT. So I think I'll do a little extended reach out and see if we can get something up there just to round out that portion of it, because I feel bad we haven't really hit up Maryland this session, but I'll see what I can do.
And I'll also send a note to the board members once we go out and say, hey, we're also doing this. You can help us in your because you're super connected in your community, or you wouldn't be a board member, probably. It'd be great if you can help us make a good report for you. So I'll send them a note. And then there's a lot of like jurisdictions. I see some Montgomery County, Maryland folks, and all the counties represented in here, and Tyson's and DC. So there's folks that I have the email list too from DMV Move. So a lot of those government jurisdictions will get it from me as well. And I'll put all of those folks into the spreadsheet. And I will say to the spreadsheet point, if we can collect some emails, it helps us for now. It'll help us for 2027. If we already have a distro list of folks that we know we reached out to, as folks come on and roll off the rack, keeping those contacts is always helpful. So let's try to do that too if we can. Okay. Anything else about the rack feedback form that we want to folks want to discuss before we move on? All right. So, almost there. Is there any other new business to come before the rack or announcements?
I have an announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, on March 16, and we already reached out to John about this, but there's going to be a community engagement forum on transportation in Arlington. So any of you Arlingtonians or non-Arlingtonians, if you are interested in engaging, please reach out to me. We're going to have Professor Jason Falvey from University of Maryland Med School come and talk. His perspective is on how transportation is necessary for older adults to get health care. and especially for those with greatest social or economic needs. So would love to, see if you want to join us, and wanted to put it out there. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Eli.
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot about Metro Lift in the past, and I was looking at things online recently, and I saw that some states are actually looking to upgrade their SNAP cards to be have like the chip and everything. So I don't know if that's something that could like coincide with the tap and go. I forget the slogan there, but yeah, tap right go. But I just think that that could be something interesting to bring those conversations with jurisdictions in WMATA. So just thought I'd throw it out there.
Awesome. That's an interesting idea, too, to think about. I'll have to follow up with some staff about that one. All right. Seeing nothing else, our next meeting will be virtual on February 4th at 6 p.m. I want to thank everyone for a good meeting. The discussion about wayfinding was really nice. It's great to have everyone involved. And then this RAC annual report process kickoff here is really important to our work and to demonstrating to the board the value of their advisory committees. So I'm looking forward to everyone helping us get more responses this year. And with that, that brings us to the adjournment. If there are no objections, I will consider this meeting adjourned at 7:28 p.m.